Congressman, I want to talk to you, and it's a bigger conversation than we can have right now about Latinos in general and wealth and challenges to them. But I want to talk to you about agricultural workers because they make up a massive proportion of our agricultural workers. I've got a quote from a farm worker organizer named Lupe Gonzalo. He's with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers in Florida, in which he says something quite poignant. In non-coronavirus times, farm workers are already silent. They are not able to ask for drinking water or other basic human rights. Now farm workers are not going to be able to demand that their bosses have additional places for them to wash their hands or ask for protective gear. That's even before we're talking about $1,200 checks and extended unemployment, Congressman. We have a whole bunch of people in this country who are working under the radar, who are qualifying for nothing.
Yeah, no, that's right. And he's absolutely right. This pandemic has not only exposed, but it's exacerbated a lot of the inequities in American society. And you take farm workers as one example. For many years, these were folks who were often ignored, not thought much about. There was a reluctance to bring them into the fold of American citizenship, for example. And yet they're out there during this pandemic working probably longer hours than even they have ever worked to make sure that our grocery stores are well stocked. And so I hope that not only will they get the protective gear that they need and the workplace protections that they need right now, but they'll also get the economic relief that they deserve. And in the long term, that we will take into account the fact that when we needed them most, they came through for this country in a big way.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible because if you didn't think they were essential workers, you're learning now when you have to eat that they are. You're asking for some specific things. You and 36 other lawmakers have asked for legal protections from deportation for essential agricultural workers, direct financial assistance to agricultural employees to give them some things they don't qualify for, food assistance to them, expanded child care for them. And you're asking for something. Governor Murphy in New Jersey asked for the same thing for the Department of Homeland Security and USCIS to extend work permits for immigrants, including those on DACA.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's no reason that these folks, some of that workforce is undocumented. And there are 4 or 5 major American industries that would not exist the way that they do, but for immigrant labor and some of that undocumented immigrant labor. And there's no reason during this pandemic, when these are essential workers, that we should even think about deporting them. They also deserve, as other workers do, like healthcare workers, sanitation workers, truckers, I think, they deserve some kind of hazard pay for making the sacrifice to be out there and to continue to work and to put themselves at risk.
When I look out the window, it's here in Manhattan every night at 7 o'clock. We applaud the frontline workers. We're talking about EMTs and police and doormen and delivery people. And some massive percentage of those delivery people are Latino. They're Hispanic. They're out there. They sometimes, in most cases, cannot make a choice not to be there, but they're dropping off our food. They're delivering our food. They're opening people's doors. They're taking care of people on the street. And there are a number of people in this country who are of mixed status in their families. Some of them have Social Security numbers. Some of them have tax identification numbers because they actually pay tax, but they don't qualify for the rebate.
Yeah, that's right. And this was a big debate during the CARES package. In the House version of that bill, the way that money was going to be, financial assistance was going to be distributed, was under what is called individual tax identification numbers. Some people who are undocumented or other workers don't have Social Security numbers, but they're still out there either working hard or have been working hard, and they're getting nothing. But more than that, if you have somebody who's undocumented, who is married to U.S. citizen and has U.S. citizen children, they are also getting nothing. The whole family gets nothing just because you have one person who may be undocumented. And that is also an incredible injustice.